Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, we've got some ship usage stats for 3v3 for the past 31 days, so let's talk about that. Starting off with the least used and going to the most. Very first is the PARAGON, with 2 uses in the past 31 days. Doesn't really surprise me because, let's be real, while the utility you can get out of that thing is fantastic, you pay for it with too much DPS, it just becomes a huge target, not the greatest pick in the world. At 3 uses apiece, we have the Ranger and Endeavor. Now, while these ships can perform just fine in 5v5, in 3v3 they just do not have the damage output or the hit points to make themselves useful. So, really would not recommend taking these ships. With 4 uses each, we have the Raider, Raven, and Infiltrator. Now, with the Raider and the Raven, it's kind of the same story as the last 2. They're very squishy, and they don't have the greatest DPS in the world. However, the Infiltrator, I would not be surprised to see more of in the future once people really figure out how to use that AoE disarm. Because being able to disarm 3 targets is huge, but it requires that little extra bit of coordination. It really can be a game changer if you can pull it off. Next, with 5 uses apiece, we have the Watchman, Centurion, and Colossus. Now, the Watchman really only brings DPS to the table, and not enough to justify bringing it. The Centurion, while an awesome ship, really depends on having a little bit of chaos around so it can get off that AoE successfully. And the Colossus, while it doesn't have the best DPS in the world, has crazy crowd control, and I would really like to see more people playing it. Next, at 6 uses apiece, we have the Equalizer, Hunter, and Protector. Now, with the Equalizer and the Hunter, they generally don't like to fight and don't have the best DPS. They also have arguable utility, because, I mean, the Hunter really only caps very well, and the Equalizer can purge, but that's not great. However, the Protector actually can live long enough on its own to be useful, while it can't heal itself. That is almost made up for by the fact that it can reduce all damage by 50%, and in close quarters like that, that is actually going to be able to hit your whole team a lot more often than it won't. So, definitely think the Protector is a strong pick in 3v3, at least for the moment. At 7 uses apiece, we have the Reaper, Executioner, Overseer, and Gladiator. Now, the Reaper and the Executioner are just really solid ships that have good DPS and some defensive abilities, so, I mean, there's really nothing for me to say about those. However, the Overseer and the Gladiator really don't do so well, as the Overseer only brings DPS to the table, and even then, because the beam is still kind of weird to control, it isn't the most consistent in the world. With the Gladiator, you have a rather large lack of mobility, because in order to get the most out of it, defensively or offensively, you have to hunker it down and sit it in place, which really does not suit itself well to the fast-paced action that 3v3 can end up being. Next, at 8 uses apiece, we have the Guardian and the Ghost, and while they're not bad ships in and of themselves, well, they only bring DPS to the table, and that's it. They're also rather squishy, so, not the greatest picks for a 3v3 environment. The only ship with 9 uses, the Sentinel. Now, while it doesn't have the best DPS in the world, it does actually have really good dive potential because of its agility and the fact that its weapons do not have arc and track. So, if you need to get behind the enemy lines and attack the healer directly, you could pick a worse ship. At 10 uses apiece, we have the Persecutor. Now, while the DPS on the Persecutor is pretty good, it is so easy to get focused and just absolutely crushed as the Persecutor. Couple that with the fact that it's really easy to tunnel vision and jump into where you don't need to be, it really does not end up very well for the Persecutor when it comes to squishiness. At 11 uses, we have the Black Widow. Now, while it does have some utility with the different kinds of missiles it can bring, it is easily countered by point defense. Double that up with the fact that it's very likely that there's going to be multiple fields of point defense overlapping. It's very unlikely you're going to get most of your missiles onto target, much less all of them. Couple that with the fact that it's kind of squishy, and that's really not a ship you want to be taking. At 12 uses apiece, we have the Brawler and the Aegis. Both of these ships are not squishy, yes! However, the Brawler does have limited range with its DPS, but with the Aegis, Death Ball can decide games. If you catch out a healer or you split up the enemy team, that can get you a Gamma, that can get you a forward operating base, that can get you the game. Very, very, very easy to decide a game with a Death Ball, provided you aim it right. At 13 uses apiece, we have the Disruptor and the Basilisk. While both of these ships, for their class, bring good utility and okay DPS, heal drones on the Disruptor are easily eaten in close range. So fighters and point defense systems are going to tear them apart. So a little bit of a double-edged sword with those. At 14 uses, we have the Interceptor. Now, the Interceptor is great DPS, has some utility with its concussion missiles, but it has no defense. So if you can't deal with that, I wouldn't fly it, but other than that, this is a fantastic ship. At 16 uses each, we have the Venturer, Enforcer, and Destroyer. Now, the Venturer is a jack-of-all-trades, master of none, so it can do very well, but it's really going to heavily depend on your other two teammates. With the Enforcer and the Destroyer, they both bring pretty good DPS, but that's, well, it. And so they can very easily end up turning into just giant targets. Wouldn't recommend those two. At 20 uses, we have the Paladin. Now, this is going to be kind of weird, but I don't think the Paladin is good for 3v3 because it does not have enough defense to support its poor self-healing, and it is also very, very energy hungry. Very easy to zero out your energy if you're using your plasma field and your heals, so I really wouldn't recommend it. Third most used at 24 outings, the Pioneer. Now, the Pioneer has pretty good DPS, and it's not squishy. It's the freaking Pioneer, man. Come on. It's awesome. Second most used at 27 outings is the Superlifter. It does fantastic DPS. Well, for a healer. It also has fantastic self-healing. It's also really nimble and hard to hit. I mean, it's the Superlifter, just, you know, with less people on your team. What's not to like? With 37 uses, most by a country mile, we have the Leviathan, an absolute beast of a ship with really good DPS, a jump buoy to get you back into lane quicker and relocate your team quicker, and, well, it's got the fusion beam, which is the best burst damage on demand you can get. I mean, really, there is no reason to not use a Leviathan other than, well, somebody else picked Leviathan, so you can't take it now. Thank you all for watching. I hope those of you that are newer to the 3v3 atmosphere will have found this helpful in picking ships whenever you get stuck in a 3v3, and I will see you all next time.